Let's take a telco as an example, yeah? Over 200,000 assets, millions of customers, billions of alerts a day, 24/7 monitoring, a tiny profit margin, huge competition. Do we think the traditional IT rule-based systems can help them survive in the industry?
Hello and welcome back to Humans in the Loop on the HM YouTube channel. My name is Deborah and today I'm here with Amithap to talk about his journey in cybersecurity as well as how he came to join HM. So why don't you start off by introducing yourself, telling us more about what you do in HM and how you recently joined.
I joined HM. This is my day 8 in HM. I joined as an executive director for critical infrastructure. I'll be managing the customer experience and trying to get HM platform to our customers.
So I've heard from Salim, my boss, that you have a lot of experience in cybersecurity. You've been doing it for a really long time. You guys go way back. So why don't you tell me more about how you got into cybersecurity those decades ago?
It's a very long 20 years journey to decades of journey, but let me give you a very short description of how this journey works. Yeah, we started with the traditional firewall-based cybersecurity, where we've been carrying some of the ASA Cisco firewalls to the data centers and been connecting to different architecture. And that's the network security arena of days in 20 years back. And later on, I've been moved into a cybersecurity space, doing a lot of security around endpoint, the proxies, data, and an application space. And post that one, this journey starts with the telco space, where I've been spending a lot of time on helping the customers, telcos, on securing the 2G architecture. You can imagine how old it is, yeah. And then it moves on to the 2.5G, which is a femtosecond architecture.
Wow.
3G, and it got transformed in 2014 to a 4G architecture, where you have the CSFP, circuit switch callback, where you say the calls going through the GSM, and that falls back to the 4G network, the CSFP, and the data over the 4G architecture. That's a long journey within the telco space. And at the end, I wind up the telco conversation and still doing the 5G space, where how our customers can secure the 5G infrastructure in the means of slicing, in the means of allocating the dynamic spectrums, and making how the digital presence of telco is transformed from techco to telco to the techco. Yeah, that's the journey on the telco. There is a time where spent on a national cyber defense, where we're doing the lawful interception, data retention, geofencing of people, and the intruders who try to masquerade about various different scenarios. Later on, the journey continued to FSI space, spend a lot of time on protecting the banking customers on the transaction banking, credit lending group, trading, loan, and various different banking customers. Yeah, and that's the very long journey. It starts with the network to cyber to telco to national cyber defense and to the service line around banking, pharmaceutical, airlines, aviations. Yeah, a lot more on that space. But what's really fundamental to everything is data. Yeah,
Right.
you could realize the data quietly become the most valuable asset. Yeah, I mean, I've been watching the HM's movement around what you've been doing on the data space, and I've been quite impressed with the way how the data is being utilized within the platform which HM built. Yeah, that's phenomenal. I mean, if in the market today, if you see how data is being used, there are tools
Yes.
that's available to help the data, either to secure the data or the databases that just store the data, right? But where is the space where you bring everything together to protect business? Means you need to protect business data. That's the business asset.
Yeah.
To protect business data, you still need a telemetry data that comes out of the security tools and applications, or
Yeah.
the assets within the business that interacts together. You need to collect that kind of a data to make use of analytics,
Yeah.
and you do a response capability. Yeah. So understand that HM do that in a most advanced way. When I say the advanced way, is not the traditional off the shelf, uh, yeah, parsing and analytics out of the databases. This all comes out of the various different AI models that which you build within the HM platform. It starts with the data injection, the detection strategy, that narratives, doing the analytics on the exposure. Every single module within the platform is being built based on AI knowledge. Cybersecurity strategy is not active without, matured without a data-centric strategy. So you need to have the data concept adapted within the business through the platform that helps you to navigate different dimensions of business.
What would you say makes a good data concept? The core, you said the core is about data, what you do with the data. What would you say are the characteristics and traits of a good system of using the data?
I mean, if you look into the business assets or IT assets, people call them as a technology assets. Every system use some form of data. Yeah, that could be just a day-to-day operational data. That could be a patent information, copyrights, trade secret, or the PCI DSS data, the GDPR data, or the data that related to business transactions or HR transactions. So everyone deals with some form of data on an everyday basis. Yeah, or it depends on the levels and the categories of people which use different kinds of data. And you have the three further fundamental principles within that data. You have a structured data, and you have a, which is the data which stores in the databases, in the structure formats, in the tables and extents and segments. And you have unstructured data, which is the Word and Excel and the PDF, the MIMI compliant,
Right.
files which we use on day-to-day basis, and the semi-structured data that being used within the applications. Yeah, they
Yeah.
communicate each other. There is nothing called good data or bad data.
Right.
Every data within the business is important.
Okay.
Yeah, every single telemetry is important. But the way how you want to utilize data, it's not. Before I call that out, I want to say human link is the most weakest link within the threat space. What does that mean? Is insider threat is the most prevalent attack surface. So you can't rely on people to make use of data in a more diligent way. Yeah, it could be a misly sending some data, it's a good data through an email. Yeah, so you need to put a proper control in place. But the traditional technology, tools-based technology, which interact with the different business assets, that's no more going to help you, because as the technology evolves, business evolves. So to adapt to that business evaluation, you need to have a sophisticated platform that helps you to look into all dimensions of data.
So when you say a sophisticated platform, I assume you kind of like are aiming at what HM does, which is what, we collect all the data and we present it in an understandable and kind of consolidated way for people to interpret, for business leaders to interpret, for the security analysts to interpret. So on the topic of the HM platform, what would you say it brings to the table that is not already in the industry?
If you think about human managed, the
Yeah.
vision is different. The vision is not to disrupt, is to help customer in a way. You come out of this stereotype, technology-based, integrated approach. That's a fragmented approach. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
everything is fragmented. Everything is everywhere. Yeah, you come into a phase where you bring the data to one engine. That could be a engine help you for a data analytics for a business decision. Not necessary it's a security decision. Not
Yeah, it could
necessary
just be
whether
any, executive decision that you need to make. Yeah.
it could be a fraud decision,
Yeah.
where you need a fraud-centric technology to invest on a specific product that helps you on detecting the fraud. But they use the same data which the SOC use.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so then you need a different set of data warehouse and data storage to process this. It's not a scalable. Uh, the cost of managing this data stores in a different environment is expensive. And if you think about the fraud management data, the retention period is, for instance, 90 days. But if you think about some of the requirements in some regions, the SIM data, which is used for this SOC, you cannot delete them. You need to keep them. Yeah. So the fundamental thing is somewhere you need to store the data, somewhere you need to process the data for different purpose. The purpose is a fraud, the purpose is security, purpose is business analytics, purpose is customer experience. The purpose could be for the software creation. HM do this in a platform. But how does the HM do this? Yeah, because HM is not a tool-centric conversation. It don't integrate with 100 different technology to pull these stuffs. Yes, it collects the telemetry, not just the logs. It could be a transaction between two business systems. But the different AI engines, the different models within the HM platform build the use cases based on the business needs. So you have a telemetry. One of the dashboard, one of the telemetry could be a SOC telemetry, where you can do a incident response and SOC management directly in that telemetry. The next dashboard could be a fraud dashboard. It's the same, utilizing the same data, utilizing the same model, same classification which stores within the HM databases, and you have a fraud telemetry, and you can also have a software development telemetry. Use the same platform to create the codes, they create the standards, architectures, SOPs, and all this comes out of same platform. So the missing puzzle is an architecture element, right? If you think about this fragmented security, you have different things connected everywhere. So when you bring the HM as a consolidated platform, we consolidate the architecture within the data architecture within one platform, so you see various results.
Okay, yeah. So that's kind of like how we have dashboards and the web app, which shows everything in one place.
And I mean, we need to remember, we don't have one dashboard for every customer.
Yeah, no, with different ones.
It's pretty agile. Different customer need different purpose. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been looking into the some of the models, and it's been quite natural that some of the scoring system within the platform for telcos, the network scoring is higher. If you think about the FSIs, the endpoint scoring is higher. If you look into the cloud-born digital banking, the API score is higher. So based on the business aspect, the scoring system within the HM platform differs. So it's so amazing that you don't see one dashboard for everyone.
Yeah, it's customized.
In my experience, 2 decades of experience, whatever I have seen in the tools, it's the same dashboard that applies to every single customer. Yeah, I mean, this is completely an agile approach of building something that's suitable for a customer need.
The way you describe the human managed product sounds amazing because it is amazing. But I was told that you knew about HM a long time ago before, even before the company was officially started, right? So what took you so long to join us?
The motivation comes out of what you want to, I mean, after 20 years of experience, you want to give back to the society. What? Another tool? That's not going to help. A strategy? There are a lot in the market. A framework? Enormous in the market. What do you want to give back to the society? Is there any tool today which can tell you what's the security score looks for your organization? I'm not talking about incident response scorecard or a maturity of it. I'm not talking about the maturity assessment. It says like you are in the power of 1 to 5. And I'm not talking about your maturity of identity and access management. I'm talking about the security of a company.
Yeah.
And what's your score around that space. Yeah. And this is not an operational risk dashboard to say your risk is managed, unmanaged, or within tolerance. There is none in the market. If there is some, and they are just on the risk front, not on the overall security front. That really motivates me to see this is something industry wants. Okay, what's the fundamental issue with that assets? Now you go further down to understand what's happening within your company. It shows that you onboarded few third parties recently, and the third parties are not comply with your organization standards. And that's where your scorecard went down. Now, if you want to do this in a traditional way, you need to have a third-party management system that only speaks about that party, that don't speak about the organization context about security. That's the huge motivation, right? This is something industry wants today. Bring it to them and say, do as much you can. If you want to go out of security, go ahead and do the fraud management. Go ahead and do the data analytics. If you want to use this, just on the data classification, carry on. You don't want a different classifier because you throw the file, I'll get you what you want to classify based on the context of your business. Yeah, that's the huge motivation. That's the huge factor that drives me to take this back to some of my customers in the region.
So what do you hope to see? I mean, now that you've joined, what do you hope to see for HM in the near future?
I think uh, it's not about HM. It's about the business, overall business, our customers,
Yeah.
and the market sentiment. We spoke about the tool and the fragmented security. I'm just speaking about security, but there are other aspects that HM covers on the data analytics for various business needs. I'm not getting into that at this moment, but for this example of this purpose, I'll speak about the security. Yeah, market evolves. Let me give an example. Let's take a telco as an example. Yeah, over 200,000 assets, millions of customers, billions of alerts a day, 24/7 monitoring, a tiny profit margin, huge competition. Do we think the traditional IT rule based systems can help them survive in the industry and sell their services with the traditional security, putting the rules matching different parameter, different log sets? That's not going to help.
Right.
So this is not about the maturity and the future of HM. This is how customers are going to adapt, transform together with us. And that real digital transformation comes when you start utilizing the data for the purpose.
My last question would be, other than what you hope to see with HM growing with customers and just evolving with them, what do you hope to bring to the organization as like yourself?
More stories. Yeah, it's a platform, scalable. I want to say that this particular thing as well. Yeah, when I say scalable, it can scale to multiple different cloud environment. On a country where the data sovereignty is key, you can also build that in a data centers. That's very key. Not every single technology supports that. Yeah. So the way how CHEM layers are built, where you can lift and shift to a different infrastructure. Yeah. What I'm going to bring? That's a good one. Use cases. What's really required for transaction banking? That's not just security. They do a lot of different things within transaction banking. How a platform like HM can help solve some of their business problems, not just the security problems. Yeah, that's something which I'm going to bring to the table. Now, 5G is one of my forte where I spend a lot of time on it. Yeah, so there is a huge gap even within security. How you need to secure the environment like 5G, which is no more the transport network, which is a digital network. Yeah, every single resources in 5G is being allocated through slicing. Yeah, resources are allocated on the fly when there is some utilization. Yeah, want to bring HM platform, not just to secure them, also help them on scaling their architecture. Yeah. So that's the stories which I'm going to bring, the narratives which I'm going to bring from industries, the use cases which I'm going to bring to the our developers to see how we can adapt and how soon we can bring this to reality.
Okay, I guess that kind of answers most of the questions I wanted to ask you today. I mean, I'm sure that if I come up with more questions, I can always get you on for another interview if you're in the office. But it's a really, really nice that you are in Singapore and I could talk to you in person, because sometimes I do Zoom interviews and it's just not the same. So thank you for taking time out of your day to talk to me. I really appreciate it. I really learned a lot about you, not just you, but what your perspectives on HM. And I mean, I agree with a lot of what you said. I think whoever's watching will also learn a lot from what you have brought up and mentioned. And I really look forward to, seeing what HM will become like now that you've joined and just like bringing things forward. So
Yeah.
yeah, thank you so much for
Thanks, Ab. It was a
taking
great
time.
questions
Yeah, I
with you.
really had a good conversation.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Deb.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.